Let's call the meeting to order. Present in person here from the Board of Health, myself, Mark, and Kurt, and then present on the Zoom is Jill Block. Okay. All right, so the first item on our agenda is the definitive subdivision plan, ADX and 1053 Main Street. Are there someone going to present from the?
I can start the discussion.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, again, my name is Matt Seppi from EMS Development Corporation. And we're here tonight to provide the board and any other folks on Zoom introduction to the proposed subdivision at 1053 Main Street and ADX, which is an abutting parcel next to that. Currently, there's a single family home that's there that's been vacant for about 8 or 9 years. That parcel, along with the parcel that's behind it, make up approximately 2.2 acres. And we are looking to propose to create a subdivision there that would have 5 lots in total. One of the items we brought up last week, we had our first planning board meeting last week, so we're in the early stages of the presentation. And one of the discussion points that we had brought up last week is currently our plan has 1 sewer connection for a home that would be on the lot where the existing home is now. The other homes we currently have on-site disposal systems. We've been working on the basis as history has dictated in the town previously. Typically, and I didn't do a good enough job to explain this at the planning board meeting last week that I should have done for the folks that are on the abutters and so forth that are on for Zoom. But typically, in my experiences in town, the existing home lot would be allowed a sewer connection. The vacant lot, which is ADX, would be allowed 1 sewer connection. But due to capacity constraints, no other lots would be allowed a sewer connection. That's always been the operation that I've seen in town, and I have not in the past seen additional capacity granted before. So that is why we designed we kept the 1 house that was on the sewer, and the other houses we just put on for on-site disposal systems. Since
just so I understand, just because I wasn't sure the way you said it. So the existing dwelling that's vacant, that one's already on the sewer, and that one you plan to keep on sewer.
Correct.
And then you've got 4 other units, and those all would have their own
On-site disposal. Yes.
Plan.
Because typically the town would only allow 1 sewer connection for the parcel that is ADX. So
yeah, so
to
what
bring
is
in
the
1
ADX?
sewer connection when we would still have 3 houses on-site disposal, we
Right.
felt we would just put them on all on-site disposal systems.
Okay,
There
where
was some
is
concern.
ADX on this? Just I did look at all this before. I just couldn't tell.
You want to, I can.
Probably are those the definitive subdivision plans?
Yeah, this is it. I pulled it up.
Yeah, maybe if you go to just page 1, that is the
Okay.
the locus. Might be the easiest to just acclimate everybody with it. So.
Sorry. I'm not a super Zoom star, okay, guys?
It's okay.
So good.
Oh, is ADX basically everything but the existing
Correct.
lot? Okay.
But we'll
Yeah.
call up the locus just for clarification. So you can see where the locus is, the black highlighted area.
Yeah.
That encompasses the perimeter of the existing house and the ADX lot, which is to the left and behind it. If we have a chance to maybe go to sheet 2, that might show a little bit easier for you.
And that's roughly across from Concord Green.
Yes, yes.
I can do this, guys. Okay, I'm getting there.
Oh, and I'll note for the record that Jim Whalen is on the Zoom now also. Hi, Jim.
All right.
Is it okay if I approach to show on the screen?
Yeah, that would be
From my
great.
screen, would that be helpful?
Maybe not to the Zoom, but at least for us.
So
I can highlight what you're pointing to.
This is the existing parcel that's there now, that has the single family dwelling on it. The rest of this area here is what is known as ADX.
Okay,
So next to the existing lot, there's this area here, which has what's called a paper road that was laid out in 1899.
Wow.
That paper road goes from Main Street out to Old Bridge Road and then over intersecting through the property to where Staffordshire Green is.
okay, so that road's actually there currently.
That is not there. Was laid out in
It's a paper-
1899 as a paper road.
Oh, meaning it was like
And we're,
never
yeah.
done. but-
as part of our proposal, we're proposing to improve that, to
Yeah.
make that a road that would provide frontage to
Okay.
these additional lots that would be created.
And all three segments were part of the paper road, so.
Yes, the whole parcel, yes, this was all an existing from the plan from 1899. So what we're proposing to do is to take this lot here and make it a little bit larger, so it's in District C, which requires 10,000 square foot lots. So we would make this lot a little bit larger, so it'd be a 10,000 square foot lot. And then additionally, we would create lots 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Are those also all 10,000 square foot lots?
They range up to 17,000,
Okay,
from
but
12 to 17.
10 plus,
Yes.
more than 10, got it.
So as mentioned, this lot would be the one we would keep the sewer connection to. And then the other lots is where we've done all the soil testing in anticipation for on-site disposal systems. As mentioned, though, I know there was some concern at the planning board meeting last week in reference to using on-site systems. So I will be requesting, I guess, formally to water and sewer to see if there is any pathway for capacity increases. I have not experienced that in the past, and I'm not aware of any opportunities where that's been granted in the past, but I am going to go through the proper channels to see if there's that possibility that would exist for allow us to connect those on to sewer.
So I had reached out to water and sewer today, and the document that is presented to you is what the feedback from Jeff Morowski, the water and sewer superintendent, gave us. Jill and Jim, I think that's in the link I sent as a packet share. That's just the information that they provided when I inquired about on-site disposal at that council.
So I thought maybe what we could do is Paul from Paul Kirshner from Stampsky and McNary is here with me tonight. And we could maybe call up one of the sheets and you could talk a little bit more specifically or answer any questions you might have about the systems on the different individual lots. Paul, sheet,
Yeah,
that'd be the best for you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Would sheet number 4 be the best sheet for you to call up? For us?
Yeah, is it possible for me to share my screen myself? Because I mean, it's easier for me. I'll work with whatever I need to, but
I don't know. Let me think about how that's supposed to happen.
There's a-
okay.
Try that now.
Okay.
Can you share?
Can you see this?
Yes.
I'm trainable.
Okay. So, hi, everyone. For the record, my name is Paul Kirshner from Stampsky and McNary. And we're the engineers and surveyors for Matt on this project. So this is the plan we were just looking at. Lot 2, 3, 4, and 5. We are showing proposed private septic systems on those lots. The reason we're here today is because Section 81U of the subdivision control law requires a report from the Board of Health to the planning board, basically granting their approval or disapproval of a subdivision plan. The Board of Health is tasked with ensuring that the subdivision as proposed is laid out appropriately for whatever your purposes are. So, most often it's related to septic systems. You want to make sure when you're laying out a subdivision, you're actually keeping the septic systems in mind so that they are actually buildable. given the proposed layout. So what I have on the screen before you right now is the site development plan. It is extremely busy, I understand, so I'm going to zoom in. I'll just go lot by lot. So this is lot 2. We're showing a conceptual septic box over here. Lot 3, we're showing conceptual box in the front, and lots 4 and 5, we are showing conceptual system footprints to the rear of these conceptual house boxes. We were out on this site in December to test on each of these lots. We did 40 to 2 perks on each of the lots. It's great material, deep sand, well draining, all less than 2 minute per inch perks. Previously, prior to my involvement, but closer to the beginning of Matt's involvement at this property, testing was conducted in, I believe, 2016, and they yielded very similar results. We aren't relying on any of that a little bit older testing for these septic systems, but additional testing has been done, and it's very consistent across this site. So we think that this site does lend itself well to the construction of private septic systems, if indeed that is how things proceed. You know, Matt mentioned approaching water and sewer, or to discuss the potential to allow additional lots to be served by the sewer system. But as the plan is drawn right now, we are showing conceptual septic areas. And the reason I say conceptual is just because we have not completed full septic design plans at this time. Those would be provided at a later date, assuming that we proceed with private septic systems and receive planning board approval for the subdivision as a whole. But I would like to note that approval of the subdivision plan does not constitute issuance of septic permits. So we would still need to provide individual septic plans detailing the types of systems, the proposed design flows, and details on the materials and methods of construction. So I can speak more generally, or more specifically, I should say, to any particular aspects of the plan or any individual lots, but I've covered what I feel is most important. So please ask away. Thank you.
So just to clarify, you're looking at this point for preliminary approval that this is all within reason to the extent that we can tell at this time. Is that what we're being tasked with tonight?
Bill, I think we're being asked to approve the subdivision plan.
Mhm.
Which includes, you know, being able to have septic systems in those locations, but not the actual septic systems themselves, not the full design. So, and it's only in front of the Board of Health because there's septic. So
It's a subdivision law, actually. So
Mhm.
the subdivision law on the books that, I don't remember the number of the
Yeah.
law, sorry about that. But it is a subdivision law that requires boards of health or their agent to advise the planning board on whether or not a subdivision is suitable.
Mhm.
So that's what this purpose is. The septic system, if it goes through planning and becomes approved, would go under the normal review process for septic system design, right? Like what we typically do.
Correct.
If there's any local upgrades or any variances, they would come to you, but we normally review the septic on-site wastewater plants.
Mhm.
So let me just get the phrase. So we're advising the planning board that the subdivision as proposed is acceptable.
Correct.
Yeah, from a public health perspective.
Yeah,
From-
understood.
Mhm. Right. So what we have
That's
to
the law. I just can't remember the number.
right. So at this point, all we have to go by at this point are the perk tests. Is that it? And the size of the lot and that information you received earlier from water and sewer about lot size and tree consideration of trees in terms of where tanks are located, or where, you know, the septic plans are located, right? we don't really have much to go by other than the fact.
Those are the for deep hole tests.
Uh-huh.
So
okay.
those are the perk tests and the deep hole test. I was actually there. So those some good digging that day.
Good.
Excavating, wrong word. Thank you. Good excavating. But so yes, those boxes are the where we excavated the deep hole tests and then observed the soil perk tests.
Yeah, so before we ask additional questions, I actually think it'd be helpful, because you and I talked about it. Why don't you give us your recommendation of whether or not the subdivision plan is in compliance?
I'm recommending that the division is in compliance with what our needs are for on-site wastewater.
Hey, Melanie, I'm having a little bit tough time hearing you.
I know, I'm not, something's not working right. I'm sorry. I can
It sounds
speak
like
up.
your mic is coming from a different location or
That
something.
for some reason isn't working and I'm,
You're better now.
well, because I came up to the computer.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys.
Were you able to hear me, Jim, or?
You seem okay. Yeah, I can hear you pretty well. And Jill, you were fine. I just couldn't hear Melanie that well.
I will talk louder.
You're coming from the laptop or the mic?
It's from the laptop. This is the microphone, but it's not on because it's not blue.
Yeah, I don't think it's on.
Can I? How's that? Can you hear me now?
I can.
Much better, much better. Yeah.
I can project much louder. I get accused of being too loud, so I can.
Yeah, you can't see her, but you can hear her. That's more
I can't
important.
see you now.
So just to get us back on track, so we have Public Health Director Deneen's recommendation. Are there other questions from board members?
Is there anything non-conforming with the proposed conceptual layout?
So each of the lots does conform to the requirements of the zoning bylaw. We have noted some waivers that would be needed for this plan in our application to the planning board. They're really all related to the fact that this right-of-way is existing. It's a paper street, so current Concord subdivision rules and regulations require a 50-foot wide right-of-way. This right-of-way is only 40 feet. The cul-de-sac circle isn't provided, so we've noted a waiver from that. Centerline radius of the road, and then we also have sidewalks. We aren't proposing any sidewalks at this time. We are proposing only an 18-foot wide road with 1-foot Cape Cod berm on either side, where the subdivision rules require 26. Both the sidewalk, or not including the sidewalk, and reducing the road width is just in an effort to decrease impervious area. We do have the space to provide those, although that's naturally a planning board issue. And then we've also noted a waiver from street trees, and we provided them as much as possible, but just in part due to the layout, the existing layout, it's not feasible to propose them every 50 feet, but we have proposed them to the extent that we could. So we do show them on the plan, but yeah, from a Board of Health standpoint, we're certainly not looking for any waivers. But yeah, it's really all comes down to it's an existing right of way, so we're working with what we got.
So I know there are members from the public here. I guess we'll just ask quick if there's anyone from the public who had something they wanted to say or not. Big gallery. Andrea McClatchy, I see your hand is up. If you could introduce yourself and then.
Sure. Yes, I have two questions. My name's Andrea McClatchy and I'm in a butter, and the septic system in lot 5 would go in very, very close to the back of my house. I'd like to understand two things a little better. One is the interface between tree removal and the septic systems, because the septic system, particularly the one behind my house, would involve the removal, I think, unnecessarily of a lot of trees. And so how does that, I'd like to understand how that process plays out. And also there's sort of an elaborate retaining wall proposal related to not just lot 5, but another lot. And I assume, but I'd like to better understand, that that's in an effort to build the houses below the level of the septic system. Is that correct? And is that unusual as it seems or not? Thanks.
You touch on it? Okay, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I can address that. So in terms of tree removal, just generally speaking, whenever you build a soil absorption system, it's typically recommended that you remove all trees within 10 feet of that footprint, because just digging that close to those trees it can potentially negatively impact their health. But also trees are always looking for something to drink, and that's, you're putting water into your leach field. So if you have trees very close to it, the roots over time could eventually intrude into the system and threaten it. So typically you look to remove any tree within 10 feet. But in terms of the review process, at some point in the future, if we receive subdivision approval and we proceed with private on-site septic systems, we would submit detailed design plans to the Board of Health. But then also, because these would be new houses, they would be subject to the tree bylaw. So that's naturally not a Board of Health matter, but when you file for the tree bylaw, the trees that would be removed would be driven by what had to be removed in order to properly construct these houses, and then also in order to properly construct the septic systems themselves. And then in regards to the retaining walls we're proposing, that really is all in an effort to limit the proposed cut on the site as much as possible, cut as in soil removal. So like on lot 5 specifically, we are showing about a grade of 141 around the house. You can see that the grade over the leach field sort of climbs, but from between 144 to 146. There are limitations on how much you can slope a system. The system itself, you can only have so much pitch to it as you go across the trenches, but then also the systems can't be buried too deeply into the ground. So in order to try to limit the cut on this lot and other lots, we are proposing a short wall. So in order to do this, these systems would most likely require pump chambers. We obviously haven't completed detailed design plans yet. My expectation is that they would require pump chambers, but that's not unusual at all. That's pretty standard in Title V and the Concord septic regulation.
Great, thank you, Paul. Any other question from the public before we move to a vote? What do you want me to do? Just make sure that we actually see everybody. If you make it max. No.
That's wrong.
Oh, and then click gallery.
Do you not want that?
Okay, Robert McClatchy. That's perfect. I have it. Robert McClatchy has his hand up.
Yes. Hi. I actually live in Bedford, but I'm supporting my daughter Andrea, who you heard from a minute ago, and I've been reviewing the details of this plan with her. So I just have a question as I look at this plan again. It seems to me that the leach field behind the proposed unit at, in lot 5 behind Andrea's house is larger than all of the others. And I'd like to know why. Why does it have to be larger?
Like I've said, we will, at some point in the future, if we receive approval from the planning board, we will submit detailed septic plans for each of these lots. These two leach fields are actually the same size on lots 4 and 5. I don't have the dimensions offhand right now. I mean, these are just conceptual right now. The footprint we show on lot 3 is much different. It's longer and narrower. And I believe lot 2, this is the same footprint as shown on lots 4 and 5. So like I said, these are conceptual, but all of these footprints are based off of an assumed 4-bedroom design flow, utilizing Presby systems, but that is not definitive. That will be provided on septic plans at a later date if we get to that point.
Just one further comment. The reason I asked the question, of course, is because the larger it is, the more trees are going to be cut down. And that's a big concern because of the environmental area and the wildlife that live there. And so it seemed like if there has to be a leach field there, it ought to be as small as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any final questions from members, or are we ready to move to a vote? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve advising the planning board that the subdivision as proposed is acceptable from a public health perspective. Would anyone want to move that?
I so move.
Do I have a second? Jill, you're on mute. Sorry. You can.
Sorry. Yes, I second it.
Okay. All in favor, let's do a roll call for the Zoom participants. So Jill.
Approved.
Jim.
Approved.
Okay, in the room. Approved. Okay. So it's unanimously approved to advise the planning board that the subdivision as proposed is acceptable from a public health perspective. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. And Paul and I will continue to work with town staff to address any of their concerns, and we'll continue to work with the butters and try to address their concerns as we evolve through the rest of the process with the design. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on. The second item on our agenda is the variance request from the Concord Cheese Shop. As a reminder, we spoke about this variance request at our meeting in June. We asked Director Dean if she would collect some additional information provided to us. Why don't you update us on your findings?
I did 3 or some extra visits. I went to the Salem Cheese Shop in Salem, Massachusetts, as a regular customer, spoke to the operator there. The majority of the cheese on display there was in refrigerated cases. I did send you in the documents a picture. They had 4 cheeses out at room temperature, 3 of them which were hard, 1 was semi-soft Gouda. I went then to Wegmans to observe their cheese display. They have, so I just, if I can just show some of the cheese shop. I did go to the cheese shop in Salem, and then I went to Wegmans. They had both hard cheeses at display, wrapped at retail, and also semi-hard cheeses. So Goudas, cheddars, were some surface ripened semi-hard cheeses. I inquired with the Board of Health in Burlington. So this was the Burlington Wegmans. They have a approval from the Burlington Board of Health to display cheese at retail because they test any cheese displayed outside of refrigeration that's not a hard cheese for pH and water activity in the Wegmans lab. So they approved that the Wegmans lab can test that exact cheese for the supplier for water activity and pH. And those are the ones that are out, that are conformed to non-TCS by the table in the definition section. So they had a variety, and I sent pictures. Let me see if I can pull that up for those of you in the audience. So they, I was able to take a number of pictures. Oh, I can. And then I went today and visited the cheese shop in Concord. I was able to visit there with a couple of folks to see what was happening, took some pictures. So that cheese shop in, here's a Wegmans picture. I'm just behind myself. I'm a little slow with this. This is an example of a semi-hard cheese at temperature in Wegmans. Today in the cheese shop, we had a good amount of cheese. This is today's pictures. Share. I can do this. This is what I discovered. There's cheese on display at retail. Semi-soft, semi-hard. This is the operator opening a cheese bare hand. No gloves. Opening, I asked him, I explained who I was. I said, I'm from the Board of Health. There's a variance request, and I just want to know what you would do if I was a customer. And he told me I would unwrap this cheese. I would offer you a sample. You demonstrate how you cut it. You demonstrate how you would unwrap it. Cut me the size I would determine right there in front of me. After I'd sampled, wrap it back up. And weigh out and sell me the piece. This is the rest of the display. You can see they have a number of cheeses at the cheese shop behind you. And then display kind of like in front of you. No date marking, no time as a public health control. These were out that he couldn't answer, like how long were these? He didn't know. And I wasn't trying to, it wasn't about testing him. It was more about just observing what was in place. So I put together a memo. I'm recommending that we still deny the variance as requested. I feel that there is operations or ways that the cheese shop could modify what they're doing to be in compliance with the code. Specifically, I think they could cold hold and then test cheeses they want outside of cold holding. And employ times of public health control. I really understand like cheese. So I'm like, I understand that they display it. I understand that wanting to have the customer experience. I just can't recommend that the cheese that's outside of the standard or the guidelines of the food code be held outside. I can't say that that's acceptable. So if they want to test for water activity and pH some way, and then put those out for retail, similar to what Wegmans is doing, or they wanted to employ some times of public health control for a much smaller sample, that they could still do what they wanted to do. Even though the cheese shop in Salem is much smaller, they had a very open cheese experience. Like this is a small retail spot, but this is all under refrigeration with the customer person right there behind you, right view, similar to what the cheese shop is doing. But it's all under cold holding. So it's a different display model. You can see kind of in the back here.
Is it all glass in front?
This is all glass. It lifts up, so you could as you're cleaning it, you like actually fill it from the front. These are very common in retail. But they have the doors actually open. They can reach in from the back, sample what you want, there's a cutting board along the back there. You can see the knives out on the cutting board. They can cut you a sample, they weigh it, they wrap it, kind of like the cheese shop's doing. If in the way back, you can see the cheeses they have out at room temperature. They're hard cheeses in the back, along the back counter. So that's my finding to date.
If I may, I'll go ahead and speak up. This is Lisa Berger from Berger Food Safety Consulting, and Melanie, I think that we are along the same lines in terms of a plan to make sure that the cheese is soft or safe. I'm glad that you had mentioned that Wegmans does do their own in-house testing for pH and water activity levels, because that was the next route that we were going. And I will let Peter take over from here, but as of last week, they do have a water activity meter and a pH meter that they would like to do the same as the Wegmans in Burlington. And I will let actually Peter jump in, because he's been quite busy since last week testing every product in his facility. And if this is acceptable to the board, as it's similar to what's being done at Wegmans, then I think that this would be something that would be a happy compromise for us. But I do want to let Peter speak up.
So we bought last week, two weeks ago, and was delivered last week, a water activity meter and a pH meter. And we've been testing a lot of our products, and the pH meters is spot on, is exactly as we would have expected everything to be, from lemon juice to the two bases that were there. The water activity meter, I'm not so sure is correct. The calibration instructions were in Chinese, maybe. So we tried that. We tried a number of cheeses, and a lot of our cheeses came in under the 88 number. But then with softer cheese that I didn't think would be safe, came in at like 76, which it should have been like 92. So we were testing cheeses again and again to see what was happening, and they seemed to be all over the board. We're not getting a significant, consistent reading. So I'm thinking that that water activity meter isn't good, and we're going to return it and try to get another one. But we've been doing that for all week last week, and that's, I'm trying to be proactive here and get that testing done. And I just really, in my heart of hearts, didn't think it was good. The guy that was doing the testing, he thought, yes, it's within reason. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense. So that's where we stand there. And so, a $600 meter doesn't work. We'll buy another $600 meter.
So would you entertain like rewriting that up, like what you would like to do, and submitting something else?
Yeah, that's what I would recommend, is that you withdraw your request at the meeting and you submit a new one, rather than us have to turn it down.
We could do that. I do want to make sure, it sounds like that we're on the same page in terms of this being an acceptable alternative to how they were doing it. So absolutely, we can resubmit the variance.
Yeah, so what I would say is, I don't know the answer to that yet till we see it all, but I think you should, submit it, work with Melanie on it to get it to a place where, she's comfortable recommending it to us.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you get to a place where Melanie's comfortable recommending it, then I think, that'll be in a good place for the board to then consider approval.
I also looked at putting in a refrigeration unit similar to the one that Salem has. So I helped design that store. And that had cost me probably about $100,000 is the estimate that the company gave me. And that would close me up. I don't have it. So I want to do what's safe for the customer and what's good for my business. And I'm doing everything I can to figure that out.
I have a question. In the pictures that Melanie showed from earlier today, it looked like since, in the time since I was last in the shop, that you have more cheeses in the refrigerated case behind and fewer on display. Am I imagining that there were more moved back?
Well, on slower days, like a Tuesday, Wednesday, we're gonna have fewer cheeses out just because we don't need them. But the cheeses that we put out are all, firm or semi-firm cheeses by and large.
Because it just looked like there were more cheese populating those cases than I typically see, but maybe it's because today's a Tuesday.
And it was a really slow week last week.
Uh-huh.
So.
And really hot. Do you vary it based on how hot it is and how, just other conditions?
The cheeses, well, we have more cheese in the case because we didn't sell it last week.
Got it.
The little formats, the small format goats that you see behind the door furthest to your left, come Tuesday should be, on a typical normal week should be about half that many. But it was a pretty terrible last couple of weeks, so we have a little bit more than we want. But the cheeses that are on the counter out here, the softest one is probably the Moulin Cremier, which is a goat cheese, which has got a lot of acidity, because we did test that one for the pH. Manchegos and aged Goudas and cheddars. I mean, those are cheeses that we put out on a regular basis. I also contacted a bunch of stores that do keep their cheeses out at room temperature. There are, half a dozen of those. And I got comments like, they don't care. They know we know what we're doing. That sort of thing. But nobody wanted me to use their name because they didn't want to open up a can of worms to their local Board of Health.
I'd call the Board of Health and ask them to confirm that.
Different cheese shops that he
Yep.
does. Yeah. Melanie, I just want to, we absolutely plan to resubmit the variance request with our current proposal, but I just wanted to make sure that this would be an acceptable plan of action for you, for them. They worked extensively with, it's a pH meter that I have my sushi clients use, and it's a Hatch. I'm very familiar with it. It calibrates really well. Peter was the one that was not comfortable with the water activity meter, which was great because all the results were coming out good on the cheese, but he's like, no, I don't trust it, which to me was a really good sign for him that he's absolutely wanting to make sure that he's only putting out a safe product.
So to me, the piece I would add is some standardization. I'd want to see there would be training, and that you would use the standard samples and and then have the same cheese verified at an outside lab once a quarter. That you're getting the similar results from select a certain sample. I know it's too costly to do all of them, but when I worked in cheese quality in the cheese plant, we would have to do, match the lab. So it's we're within rice sushi pH to send it out once a year to make sure you're in compliance and similar results of a certain cheese. I'd ask for that.
So to send it out, and you cut out a little bit. So certain samples or types of cheese that we have basically validated by an outside lab on an annual basis.
I'd like you to start with quarterly to see, you're gonna be testing a lot of cheese. So Take a sample quarterly, different sample each quarter to verify until we are comfortable that results here are similar where the third party would get. And then we'll go down to once a year. But the sushi rice is pretty standard method, how to do it. And I think once they get their method and what they're doing, I think it'll be fine. But in the beginning, I'm gonna want it to be validated more than once a year.
We can definitely address that and put that in the plan, and I'll obviously work with Peter and the team on deciding what products that we will do that testing with.
Yeah, it'd be, you know, which ones you're putting out, and then they're validating that what your results are similar to what another lab would be. Either internally with a standard, you know, a blank or a standard, I can't think of the word right now. When you put a pH meter in, it's a 4.0. I can't.
Calibration?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like use that, and then also externally to send it out.
Right, we definitely, with the pH meter, we have the 4 and 7 point buffer solution for the calibration. And this is a meter that I've probably used with at least, I don't know, 50 sushi clients across the US, and it's very consistent. And the results of the Hatch meter is it's almost identical to what we're getting by either Food Research Labs in Boston or Advanced Food Labs in Chelsea. So that one I'm not worried about. And one of the things that I had indicated with Peter, you know, depending on the water activity levels or the pH levels, that might be the sole test on it if it's low enough. The water meter, you know, definitely either we got a bad one and we can replace it with an identical, or we're just going to go with a different, altogether a different meter.
Yeah, I would say it would be more like $1,200. So
Yeah,
okay,
they've
Can I
actually
ask a
gone
couple
down and weird.
okay, maybe they've come down in price since I left.
It's amazing. All the meters are coming down, which everything else is going up. I've looked at
Okay.
electronic, yeah, so the meters are coming down a little bit.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, just a couple of questions about, Peter, you've been in business here for how long? 50 years?
56 years this year,
56 years.
1967.
Is there, have we had any complaints come before the board in a recent amount of time, or ever, as far as any indications?
Not that I'm
No?
aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And I can verify that because I do have a copy of all the reports since about 2006. And there's none of them have been a foodborne illness complaint or any type of a complaint that would require an investigation by the health department. So, and this is also not a new practice for the cheese shop. Obviously, this has been happening for 55 some years. So it's
And you've operated in a similar way in those 50 years?
Yes. Except during COVID, boy, things changed then, but it wasn't because of the cheese was out.
Sure.
I guess, Jim, we have a lot more science that we've learned in 50 years about listeria, specifically in the last 10. So what?
No, I understand, but I'm also wondering if there has been any recent complaints. I don't know if there's any, you know, information that's come forward that there's been a complaint against the cheese shop, like I would imagine other places. That's why I'm questioning it.
Nope, there's no complaint. This is just a cold holding violation. It's out of compliance with the code.
Okay.
Any other questions from any board members?
Yeah, quick question. I know that there had been the variance for, supposedly there was the variance request filed about 10 years ago. And I know in Karen's absence, it's probably hard to track stuff like
There
that.
was no, Jill, there was no variance request filed.
Okay,
It's
So,
not, did not happen.
okay. That's what I was wondering, whether there was any
Nope, there's
confirmation.
no record at all, and I don't know why, but it's not there.
It was there. I believe there's no record, but I personally wrote it and submitted and had this submitted, and based on the inspection immediately after the variance request was put in, there was discussion about it. So
Yeah, no, we understand what was discussed last meeting. I
Yeah.
think what Nolly's saying is that, you know, we don't have any record of it.
that makes
And
sense.
it's sort of not relevant anyway, I mean, no one's looking to go back and say 10 years ago, this or that. What's relevant is the immediate.
Right, my take on it is to do the right thing now. I can't fix 10 years ago in the last 10 years. I can say, let's move forward.
Okay, any other questions from anyone? Or anything else anyone wants to address? Okay, I think we have a plan moving forward, which is we won't vote on it tonight, and we will expect a updated variance request that we can consider at our next. Okay.
Well, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Appreciate your
you.
time and attention to this.
Thank you very much.
All right, chair and board member reports. Does anyone have anything they would like to report? I'm seeing none. I don't have anything either. So that's an easy agenda item. Helen, your report.
I have lots of reporting. Let's see, and Karen is out still. She's out until at least the middle of August. Gabby was injured on the job on the 20th Tuesday, 4 weeks ago, the last Tuesday in June. So she's out.
How did she get injured?
Working at White Pond, pulling the sample out of the water, she injured her back. So she's out on workman's comp. So we are 2 people in a 4.5 to 5 person department. So we're holding strong. Okay, we're doing the best we can to answer all the people as fast as we can. We cannot keep up. I'm gonna be transparent with you, like we're prioritizing and working our best to get back to people. Sometimes people are coming in person saying, you haven't responded to me, and I'm like, yep, you're on my radar. I just haven't had a chance to get a hold of you. The good news for that is David Winowich is a resident of Concord. He started today he's retired. He worked as a sanitarian in West Virginia for 26 years. And he came to me upon retirement and asked if he could please work. We were able to find a little bit of money, post a position. He filled the bill miraculously. And he's gonna work 1 day a week for us. He did food inspections for 26 years. Probably 25 in the last few years. He was a supervisor, but he's very, very. So today we're working on learning Food Code Pro. He lives on White Pond. So he actually did some sampling today. I was also teaching him to be he went out on White Pond. He did the sampling on White Pond. And I said, unfortunately, I have to pay you to do that. So he enjoyed that. A little bit of snafu with the state. Silver Hill Beach, which is a semi-public beach in Silver Hill. I guess was posted in the Concord Bridge that it was closed.
No,
It was not closed. I sent Ann Sharp, one of the residents, the testing from last week. Nobody called me. Nobody asked me. It's not posted. It wasn't. I talked to the state tonight. There was some sort of, I don't know. It was posted at the beginning of the season and closed, never got unposted at the state level. But for some reason, they picked up on it last week. So nobody swam last weekend because they thought it was closed. It wasn't closed. I don't know. We've rectified it. It's going to come down off the state list. It's going to be sampled again today, and we'll move forward.
So it didn't need to be closed.
It was posted at the state level, but I didn't know that because I wasn't looking. And the hits that I get from the state, I read the weekly emails from the state that say who's closed, but I wasn't looking on the website. And for some reason, it was never taken down from when it was closed in this big. So that was, I reached out to the manager of that program, and he was like, "Yeah, it was closed." Yeah, I said, "I told you it was closed in May, but it was unclosed June 12th. It was open June 12th." So, I don't know. Arbovirus reports are coming in weekly now from the state. Positive mosquitoes have been detected in Brookline and Worcester for West Nile, there's no triple E threat. Very low risk. I've had some inquiry about whether or not we'd come spray, which we don't. But that's ongoing. Testing at White Pond happened today. Water still looks very good. Samples, I sent out the report last Thursday to all of you, should have received that. We did send the samples out to the lab. They were negative for any kind of toxin at all, less than 0.2 parts per million, so we're way in the clear.
This is a good year to test that water too, just because of the amount of rain. We went from a dry year, a very dry year, to a very wet year. So that's really encouraging, I think.
It's very, very different conditions than last year.
Yeah,
So, and there's still so much to do and learn. We just don't have time to do it all. We can spend our full time all day, every day thinking about White Pond, right? And we
right.
have to allocate our time, but there was very little under the microscope today in any, the whole lake water and the concentrated, the BFC samples, very, very little to see. So I don't anticipate the results. I didn't do the testing, the fluorometry yet, because we ran out of day today, but I don't anticipate it to be any different than last week. The kind of updates today, we met with the development group doing the paparazzi parcel. They're looking to put a bank, a coffee shop, a food establishment, and a acute care facility at that location. It was all site plan for all townwide that to be submitted. They're looking to submit that to the planning board for the end of July. So if you're interested in that, no gossip yet on which types of food establishments, everybody's wondering. They will keep they told me under the 10,000 gallon design flows for the septic system, because they intend to be local board of health instead of DEP. They're not going to put a sewage treatment plant in. So whatever they do is, going to be under that. Concord Gas plants food plan review for their renovation to add food has been approved last week, and Bandoleros will be at 195 Sudbury Road, where the old Serafina's. That food plan review was approved by me last week. So that's a new restaurant in a vacant spot that some people are excited about.
What's that?
Bandoleros.
Mexican restaurant? I'm
Yeah,
guessing?
it's gonna be the gentleman, Elmer is his first name. He owns a number of them locally. They're pretty good. Tequila, tacos and tequila. There's one in, at the Air Force, at the military base in, right there. Where-
Bedford?
It's not in Bedford, it's the other one. Can't think of the name of it right now. Yes, Fort Devens, there's one in Devens, thank you.
Exciting.
Yeah, no, that's his spot that's been vacant for some time, so he was the right fit for that, so people are excited about from a business standpoint. Continued on, I met last week, I went to the Concord Business Association, a business committee meeting. I met with the business owners. They had they were curious about White Pond. But they also had a lot of questions for me about food truck and the policy and planning around food trucks. We do have a draft. The goal is September 1 to have that ready. Not as much for health, it's pretty clear. A mobile food permit is a mobile food permit, right? They will be inspected. Like any other establishment, they'll be permitted. However, how they're going to handle the application at the town level, if you want to be on town land. And how to use, events. So how that's going to work. It's still kind of being worked out. I think that's all. I had worked, I don't know, for the last year on some sewer and septic brochures. The sewer one is going to be, that was a request of the sewer department, water and sewer, and they're going to send that out, going to print them up and distribute them. I worked on the septic one originally as a handout, mostly for not individual homeowners, but new homeowners to septic, or people that are like condo associations, when people sometimes forget they're on a septic system and don't do appropriate disposal. So these are just some public information. I guess things that I had wanted to share. I printed them wrong, and I'll email them out after for Joe and Jim, so I don't exclude you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just didn't have time, it was a little down to the wire today. David's first day of onboarding and, water sampling and Kessler. Today, I had to lift a, deed restriction. I'd never done that before, like how to undo a deed restriction was a legal thing I'd learned to do, so. Any questions for me? Anything you've heard? Anything interesting?
Thank you for holding it together with us.
Mostly together, sometimes maybe not.
So I totally meant to bring a card and forgot that everyone could sign, but two of you are on Zoom anyway, and one of you isn't even here, but I think we should send a card to Karen from the whole Board of Health. If you could send me her address.
I have her address and I
Yeah.
mean, people could sign it here if they wanted to, or however you want to coordinate that. Yep, I have it. We sent her one in the department. We circulated it. I circulated one and we sent flowers.
I'll send her a note. I have her email. I'll send her a note.
Yeah, it's out Karen Rocks.
Yeah.
Shouldn't tell the rest of it on Zoom, so nobody emails her personally.
Well, anyway, with everyone's permission, I'll just sign your name on it.
That's fine. Thank you
So-
for doing that.
Okay, great, and
Yeah, I don't have
That's
anything
it
else.
on-
If you have any questions.
no, so are we all caught up on camps and everything smooth?
So we have a couple of camps still outstanding that are end of August camps. So we're doing one.
Like they're not starting until.
They don't start till the end. Like there's like camps that do the first week of the season and we're caught up. We just did one yesterday for the first week in August, the soccer camp at the high school. And there's a couple camps still pending that are at the end of August, that I know about.
Okay.
All the pools are inspected. The BD center is open. The only pool that hasn't been inspected is the one, the therapy pool at the hospital. That's a year-round pool, so that wasn't a pre-op. And we'll get to that either when Gabby gets back or we have time.
Did they finally get to the bottom of literally of what was going on with the BD Center? Like, I know I've gotten some notices that it finally opened, but it seemed like months that had gone by. What was the end result of that?
The end result is they're open and permitted,
Wow.
but the main drain and the main pool was rusted or stuck open.
Oh,
That's probably due from, some corrosion. They showed it to me. They had to replace the whole drain valve. Like that was possibly why it didn't go through the right circulation. And it didn't get the correct filter, so it got combined chlorine was high because the main drain was not working. It wasn't open enough.
oh, and that's why it was the
was-
chlorine levels were
Yep.
going up.
Well, the air conditioning, the air handling system, the air quality, that really helps with the combined chlorine.
Mhm.
So they need to do some, they did some modern updates to their HVAC system. There's just a number of kind of things, but they have some outstanding maintenance they're going to do still. And I don't know about the carbon monoxide leak. Once they turned on the heaters had been shut down for 7 months. They did fill the pool with water. When we inspected it, the pools weren't to temperature. They were gonna turn them on, right? And then when they did that, the alarm for carbon monoxide went off because there was some leak in the system. And that's why it closed again. So that was fixed with the building department and the fire department. So they had some real struggles.
Wow.
The building was built all at the same time, and though I think some of the stuff is failing all at once, right? As far as they're working on a preventative maintenance schedule and working on, being on top of things. So they have a list of repairs and things that they've shared with us that they're gonna do later throughout the year. And they ultimately need to invest in ozone treatment for each pool, but it's so expensive, they're gonna do it one a year. So that will really fix the combined chlorine during heavy use. They're still gonna get up their current system, they're gonna get high combined chlorine if it's under heavy use, so they're going to invest in an ozone treatment. Or UV light or something, so that they can address that issue out long-term.
This combined chlorine.
Combined chlorine is chlorine that's not available to sanitize. It's
Basically excess.
it's chlorine that's attached to a protein or a fat or something that can't sanitize by kill bacteria. It's stuck to something else. It's the chlorine that smells, burns your eyes, irritates your skin. So in our state, it's 0.2 parts per million. Like that's a really low. The national aquatic pool code is 0.4, but our sanitation that we, community sanitation they won't let us go up to 0.4. I tried for the sake of, I did appeal to the state and
To try to get it on.
they wanted a variance. Would you entertain a board considering a variance 4.4? It is in the National Aquatic Pool Code. I was turned down cold. Absolutely not. We won't. And the way the pool code is written, if the board here did a variance, the state would have to approve that. And the head of the state said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I will never approve that variance. Don't do it. So I didn't. I was just trying to, they, had asked what options they had. I was entertaining that option, but they
So then
didn't.
what is ozone treatment?
Saying it will basically destroy, okay, your combined chlorine and your regular chlorine, and you add chlorine back. So it breaks down.
Interesting. Okay.
It's a sanitizer. Ozone is used as a sanitizer. That's that. Yeah, there's a lot going on at the BD Center. But I think we're doing pretty well there. We have some complaints. The other thing I wanted to just put on your radar, I'm looking into either updating or adding a housing regulation. As Airbnbs came through zoning to be approved for use. So Airbnbs are in Concord, but they've never been, quote, allowed. Right, and now the zoning board of appeals made that accessory dwelling allowed. And then, so the building department is gonna do some inspections. And there is, like, we inspect any complaint, like at any, like the hotel, we inspect those, but we don't have a regulation that we, like some towns have, like, you get a certificate of occupancy or a certificate of compliance for a hotel, for a shared facility. And we don't do any pre-op inspections, like we don't do that. Some towns, like before any new rental turnover, they do a housing inspection before a new rental. And we don't do that. So I'm just kind of looking into what that looks like, if it, what that means, what other examples are out there. I haven't gotten very far because I don't have time, but I'm just kind of contemplating, is there something with Airbnb? Because the way the housing code works, the fire will care if there's an egress or smoke detectors, building will care if there's a broken window or the roof is caved in. But all the other complaints for the Airbnb will come to the housing code. So no heat, no water, no electricity, no, there's a rat, there's dirty, it smells. All is housing, like every single one of those. So the complaints will end up back in the health department. Because that's the code that applies. So there's some overlap with building, structural and fire and safety, life safety, but so we kind of overlap in some areas, but there's certainly certain complaints, trash, all those types of things that are specifically health.
You have a sense of how many listings there are in Concord?
Not yet.
I have to look it up, I guess.
I think there's like what you want to know, and they were working on making them available. A lot of preparation for the 250 anniversary and expectation that there's going to be need for housing. We did get a contract extension with Tricia McGee for August. So the nursing position is posted. Came online last week. So we do have a public health nursing position up. Should go on Indeed this week. It should be on MAPHN. and MHOA, hopefully, this week, but it is on the town website and it is on MMA.
Wait, but contract extension.
So our,
she-
right now we have nursing services through Great Meadows,
Uh-huh.
but the woman that's doing it only will do it to the end of July.
Okay,
So Tricia McGee, the one that used to be our, she agreed to start and do it until we fill the position.
oh, that's great.
So she's gonna start
Well, enough
August.
time to do
She,
that.
she
Right.
agreed in the short term,
Got it.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
She doesn't want to do it.
She's extra, she's double booking.
She's
just
double
to help
booked,
us
like
out.
she does, she works 20 hours a week at Lincoln, the seniors, Lincoln, not Lincoln Woods, I can't remember the name of it right now. And then she works 6 hours in Carlisle and 12 hours in Lincoln, so she's pretty full, but she'll help us out until we get the position filled. So that's a joint position with Maynard. So we're working on the committee, the hire, and we're working on the questions. We have to, in Concord, submit interview questions with every position and have them pre-approved. So we're kind of working down that road. That's exciting.
Okay, any other questions before we move on? All right, board calendar and minutes. So we don't have minutes for the last few meetings because Karen's been out. But I'm experimenting with, I took the minutes real time. They're definitely not as lengthy as Karen's, but you will have them before the next meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, August 15th. So often we end up not having an August meeting. I'm actually on vacation that day.
I'm not here that day.
Okay, so we've already got 2 people not here that day. Do we,
Well, I
do
guess
you
my only,
think we need to do anything in August?
well, they'll have the, if they come forward,
The
the
tea
tea shop will come forward with
Right.
their,
But I guess what I would say, I mean, is there a certain amount of time we have to act on that? Because,
we could,
I mean, basically what I would say is they're operating now how they're operating anyway, even though they don't have the variance.
right.
And so, and they know,
I just want them.
we know
compliant
that,
with the code.
yeah, we know
Okay.
they're working on it with you. So I don't think we have to have a meeting just to do that in August, as long as there's something you're comfortable with and they're kind of following that in the meantime until we have the meeting. If you think we do have to have a meeting, though, we can find a different day. And also if something else comes up where we have to have a meeting, we can find a different day. So maybe we should find a different day anyway. That at least you, I mean, it's okay if I miss it, but that you can make it in case we have to do a meeting.
Right, and the after that is September 19th.
Yeah,
I don't know what the following August day is. What's that?
The 22nd.
the following Tuesday.
Yeah, it's the 22nd.
Does anybody know their schedule on August 22nd?
I'm questionable that night, but not out of the question. But
Yeah, I'm sort of probably in a similar boat. August is just a tough,
It is. It is.
it's tough. Although I could probably join a Zoom on the 22nd.
Yeah, I can make that work.
Yeah, how much longer are we gonna be able to do the Zooms for? Does anybody know? I know there was a question about ending the Zooms or is that gonna continue on for a while?
I think the
Like
state,
these mixed meetings?
the state extended it for quite a while.
Did they? Okay.
My recollection.
And
too.
some boards have gone to not, and some people, you know, it's a choice, and you guys are maintaining hybrid, so. I think as long as you're doing that,
Yeah, unless people feel otherwise, I kind of like the hybrid because I think it's better for the public. And frankly, it's better. There's gonna be 10 people. I'd rather they be on the Zoom than necessarily be here anyway.
it makes it
We
so
can
they
do it.
come.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're saying for health reasons or for just
Yeah, or just-
attendance reasons?
Attend and everything. Like, I think it's more accessible for people.
Mhm.
And then we've had a few times when there's something of real interest where like everything's overcrowded in here. Not in a while, not since you've been here.
Not since I've been here. I miss,
You missed
Um,
these fun times.
So, and
I may
sometimes-
have some scheduling issues with the meetings too on Tuesdays, just because I had to switch some scheduling around during my regular work week. So the Zoom kind of works for me, like
Mhm.
when I'm at the hospital, like if I'm doing a late shift at the hospital, so.
Sure. Okay, so. Well, why don't we try to get August 22nd?
Yep.
But we can just make it I think we can just make it a Zoom meeting. Sounds
yeah,
good.
I think we can as long
And
as
then
I
we can
post it.
pretty much do it, right? And then I think let's post it, but I think the plan would still be to not have it. Right, and it's just in case we have to have it, whether somebody else, sometimes someone else files something that we have to respond. to
Right,
at
if there's
certain
a,
time.
if, unfortunately, I'll have to book it the week of. Up until, if like somebody requests, then it'd be like, they have a hearing or a special, and I can't know that now.
Right,
Um,
yeah, so I think let's have that as a backup plan, but then, again, I think the real plan is to not have it.
I put it
Unless we
in
have to.
Zoom tentative.
And do we have, or at least 3 people able to do it on the 22nd if it's by Zoom?
Okay.
22nd of August, I could make, yeah.
Mhm.
Is that what you were asking, the 22nd of August or
Yeah.
September? Yeah,
August. I don't think we're gonna actually do it. It's just if for some reason we have to do one.
Yeah.
That. if
Yeah,
we
I
have-
could be there.
Okay.
Yeah, the next one would be September 19th.
Right. If I had to be there via Zoom, I could on the 22nd.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm in a somewhat boat. I'm hopefully not in Concord, but we have to do it. Okay, but I would tell the cheese shop. Like, let's not do the meeting just for them.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can say we're.
Yeah. We expect we're probably gonna meet in September, but they want. I wouldn't even let them off the hook on that yet. I would just say, we want to try to get it, ready to go, but they may not vote on it until September, just so you know. But as long as you're, complying with the plan that you're gonna put forward.
Okay.
We're happy till the board considers it. Okay. So I think that's it. Any final, anything before I entertain a motion to adjourn? All right, someone want to move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Thank
All right, thank you very much.
you.
Very nice.
And thank you, Melanie. Hang in there. I know it's.